it is to be here with you and to get a little piece of his story. His story is actually super unique. It's the USS Frank E. Evans, and really kind of has a special twist to it with unfortunate things. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about it.
Well, a little history on the ship. The ship was commissioned, was built in 1944. She served in Second World War, in Korea, and also Vietnam.
Wow.
And she's unique, and the fact that she was the only ship that didn't come back from Vietnam. She got cut in half on June 3rd, 1969. Our ship was off the coast of Vietnam doing naval gunfire support for NATO and for CEDO, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. And our ship was escorting Australian aircraft carrier, the HMAS Melbourne, on maneuvers. This was a show of force for the North Vietnamese to just a show of force for the North Vietnamese, and we had England was involved, the Philippine Navy was involved, Australia, obviously, we were involved. Great Britain was there. Great Britain was never actually recognized as being part of the Vietnam War, but they had ships that were very active and worked with us on a daily basis. Our job as a destroyer, the Evans was a Sumner class destroyer, built in 1944, wow. Commissioned 1945, and she did her service, as I said before, in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And when we were working with the CEDO, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, our job was to escort the carrier. Aircraft carrier is probably 6 times bigger than what we were. We're a small ship. Our job as an escort was to take the bullet for the carrier and guard the carrier. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, June 3rd.
That's a big job.
It was. But we were one of several carriers, one of several destroyers that were operating in this operation. The Evans was traveling with the 5 other ships directly with us, the USS Wolf, the Larson, 2 other ships, I don't remember right off. But anyway, 3 o'clock in the morning, most of the guys were asleep. And I say guys because at that time, only men were on Navy fighting ships. They didn't have the women.
No women yet.
No. And anyway, we were riding alongside of the carrier, and the carrier was about to launch aircraft. They turn to the wind when they do this to launch to get the lift off of the carrier deck, and they gave us orders to take lifeguard duty, which is behind the carrier, and we pull around. We're supposed to pull around in front and end up behind the carrier 1,000 yards, and to pick up any planes that failed to land or fall off the carrier. And in doing that maneuver, we had 2 officers, two commissioned officers on the bridge at the time, was two lieutenant junior grades, JGs, on the bridge. They were both inexperienced, and when the carrier gave our ship orders to move to the back of the carrier, our men on the bridge, our officers on the bridge, thought we were in one position and we were actually on a different position. Our ship turned in front of the carrier, and they sent notice to our ship that we were on a collision course.
Oh no.
And within, I think we crossed twice in front of the carrier. They cautioned us that we were on a collision course, and our ship ultimately turned in front of the carrier and got cut in half. And they went directly from, if you had measured our ship from the bow to the stern, from the front to the back, and you drew a line in the center, that's exactly where they hit us. Our front part of our ship sank in 3 to 5 minutes, and it had most of the superstructure, the machinery, made it heavy, made it sink.
Just sunk faster.
Yeah, real fast. And the guys in the back part of the ship, most of the crew was asleep in their bunks, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Was that the bottom of the ship, the bunks, or?
Well, no, not necessarily. Some were various areas. One was our mess decks, our heating quarters, heating area, was in the front part of the ship, and it was about halfway up from the bilges to the bridge, and there was a sleeping compartment directly underneath the mess decks, the eating quarters, and we had just picked up, at that time we had picked up something like 50 to 60 brand new people that just got out of boot camp, just got out of basic training.
Probably young kids.
Young kids. They were 17 to 22 years old. And they were sleeping down in that compartment, and they didn't stand a chance.
It just sunk that fast.
They couldn't get out fast enough to save their lives. And the guys in the back part of the ship, the ones that were asleep, got up with their clothes on, went to their duty, their battle stations, and none of us guys in the back part of the ship, the bridge, knew what happened because they saw the carrier come to us. Yeah, but
nobody else really knew.
Not really. And I was down in the engine room and working. I had to watch at that time, along with 5 other shipmates, and we didn't know what happened. We were doing like 40 miles an hour, and you just stopped. You hit a dead wall. Stopped, everybody thrown forward. The engine rooms, the engines on these ships were powered by steam, 600 pounds steam pressure, 850 degrees. And when they cut the ship in half, it cut those steam lines, and us guys in the engine rooms were scalded with the steam. And the ship is built with, so to give you an idea of the design, there's boilers that make the steam. The next compartment back was an engine room, our engine room that we were in. Behind that was another boiler room for the aft part of the ship, and another engine room. And
gigantic.
Those guys that in the forward boiler room directly in front of us died instantly. They were scalded, and the boilers blew up. And us guys got out. And it just by fate.
Just the luck of where you were.
It just happened to be at the time. You're right. So anyway, quite an experience. I was trapped in the engine room. I couldn't get out. And none of us could get out of the engine room for a while. Meantime, the steam's blowing in at, like I said, a 600 pounds pressure. And everybody got burned, got scalded. So, but we got out. We finally got out. The carrier stopped, tied us up alongside of them, the aircraft carrier, and saved the lives of 199 survivors.
Wow.
And the carrier took us aboard their ship, and they made sure that what was left of our ship stayed afloat. And they took us aboard their ship, and of course us guys that were in the engine room were being treated in sick bay, and they supplied us or took care of us with medical attention, took care of our medical needs, immediate medical needs from them and so on. Anyhow, but everybody else was taken aboard, and then we normally traveled with another aircraft carrier, an American aircraft carrier. That was our mothership under normal operations, and that showed up and took the rest of our guys off of the Australian carrier over to that carrier, the U.S. carrier, and then they transferred us over by helicopter to the U.S. carrier. But meantime, they treated us with morphine for the pain, and it was just quite an experience. It was a life-changing experience for me.
I can't imagine. I mean, you probably never get on those boats thinking the boat's gonna fall apart. I'm assuming action goes into your head or those kinds of thoughts, but to be in that moment, for the impact, to even, probably get where you're getting out of it, to realize what even happened, I'm sure so confusing.
Well, all of the lights are out. We were, our ships were operating with darkened ship conditions, wartime conditions, and all of the lights, all of the topside lights were out anyway, but all of the lights inside of the ship went out because our generators were not operating at the time, and were not operating because of the collision. And it's total darkness. We're down there. We have no idea where we're at. In the engine room, had no idea what had even happened. So we, everybody got out as best they could. Our chief of the watch, I was lead machinist mate. We had a chief of the watch, which was above me. Then we had several young men underneath that, the guys that controlled the engines, the people that made the fresh water, several other sailors that were under my control, under my direction. But we finally got out of there, and they took us over to our aircraft carrier, and after they treated us, and from there we ended up back in the Philippines. And
Wow.
they took us from Vietnam. We were like 100 miles from off the coast of Vietnam. That sounds like a lot, but it's not enough. And
I'm sure it feels like a lot, huh?
they took us to I can't think of it. Anyway, Vietnam. When you get older, you'll do this.
It happens to me now.
But they took us over took us back to Subic Bay and then to Manila, and they had a joint board of inquiry, joint nation board of inquiry, and this was an international incident. Australian aircraft carrier ran over us, and they were our allies during the Vietnam War. They worked alongside of us every day. So anyway, it was an international incident. The military, the government, our government, had a lot of pressure to get out of Vietnam during that time, and people were marching in the streets, and Jane Fonda and her.
They were out there?
Her political cohorts they were encouraging the government to get out of Vietnam. And of course, our president at the time, Nixon, wanted to play this down as much as he could because it was just one more incident, and they had already had so many casualties in Vietnam. Vietnam War was, I think, the first war that came into our living rooms because wars before that, you just didn't have that instant play. You didn't have the movies and the videos of the people being killed and drug off of the battlefield. But Vietnam was unique because of that. We had the casualties were shown at the dinner table every night.
Yeah, really the first time that people on land
exactly.
got more immediate notification of what was happening.
Back at home here, absolutely. And anyway, they played it down as much as they could. An example of that was, like I said, we were maybe 100 miles off of Vietnam, but they reported it in the U.S. newspapers. All the newspapers said we were 550 miles south of Manila. We were, but we were south of Manila, 100 miles off of Vietnam, South Vietnam. And they, like I said, they played down Vietnam as much as they could at the time. Part of that, because of that, our 74 guys that died in the collision, their names aren't on the Vietnam Wall. They haven't honored them to give them that recognition that I know those guys deserved. I was there with them.
That's painful.
And sure it is.
Still to now, today.
And they still have. We fought it since 1972 when we found out that the guys' names weren't on the wall. And when they built the wall, the Vietnam Wall, they didn't, families went there, mothers and fathers, wanting to see their sons' names engraved on the wall, and they weren't there.
Oh.
And we're still dealing with that, but slowly but surely, our government will win because we're dying. The Vietnam vets are dying. And it's just swept under a rug. It's all due to politics. And it's a shame that plays into this. But I had dinner with a lot of those guys the night before. And they deserve the recognition as much as anybody that's on that wall. So,
yeah.
Personal opinion, but
them and their families,
Yeah,
the
they're-
people that
it's a pebble in a pond, and the problems or that not problems, but the recognition for those guys goes beyond just me as a survivor. The mothers, the fathers, it travels throughout the world. The Australians, those guys Australians were just awesome. They were jumping off of the bridge, off of the landing deck of the carrier into the water to save the guys that had gotten off of the ship, and they saved what they could. They did the best they could. And I take my hat off to them to this day. They join us for our ship's reunions every year, and a bunch of them will come over, and we probably drink too much beer, but we
celebrate each other's survival.
Survival, yeah. And they're survivors as much as the 199 of our guys were survivors. So they're pretty special friends. Pretty special friends. That was a story on the Frank E. Evans. That was the situation there. But anyway, that memory of that collision will be with me to the day I die.
Well, you sharing your story helps it stick with everybody, you know?
Well, we always hope that somebody, someplace, wakes up and says, you know, this isn't right. We're going to make it right.
And get those names on the wall.
Yep. Oh, very critical for us. This brochure tells you a little bit about the history of the Evans. And
it has the names.
74 names, and we had, out of those 74 people, one body was recovered, and Seaman Glines they found his body floating. Everybody else was gone. They never recovered 73 bodies. So those guys are in the South China Sea off the coast of Vietnam. Anyway.
Wow. Speechless. Speechless.
It's I'm sorry, I get emotional when
I can't
talk.
imagine.
Listen, it was 55 years ago, 54 years ago. So I still have problems dealing with it, and obviously PTSD is very real. Anyway.
Well, you're here today.
Yep.
And you're sharing the story.
Yes.
And I am sure that every person who has these 74 lost lives is so grateful that you continue and that your guys, make sure that their names don't get forgotten.
We struggle with that, and we will continue until the last survivor dies. We will fight for those guys. I've been blessed. I've been married to this lady. She has put up with me 53 years.
53 years!
She was my girlfriend at the time, and we got married shortly after I got out of the Navy, and she stuck with me thick and thin for all these years, and I'm truly blessed with that. So
yeah.
I'm very lucky.
How old were you when you were on the ship?
I checked the board, I think I was maybe 20 years old, or just a few days short of my 20th birthday. And I was 22 when I got off the ship, so when the collision happened. They discharged me out of the Navy. The collision happened in June of '69, and I got out of the Navy December 1st of '69. I was transferred to another ship at the time and did short tour duty aboard that, another destroyer. And then I got out. They asked me, do you want to ship over? Meaning, do you want to extend your enlistment? And I had to go in front of the chief engineer at the time. And he asked me about it. I said, are you kidding me? I said, maybe a year ago I would have considered it, but not now, not after the collision, not after what happened. I was never so close to death in my life. And those memories were there. They'll always be there.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you have your lovely wife. The universe put you guys together for a reason.
Yep.
I feel like you probably have never stood alone in your life because she's been there to help you through.
She's been very supportive.
Yeah, it's a lot.
She's put up with a lot.
Well, she obviously loves you. I am so grateful for our time today. I'm so grateful to learn about this story. You allow me to be able to talk about what we got to talk about today and get to share this. And so I commend you for sharing it with us, because I know that's not always easy.
Yeah.
But so grateful you, and thank you so much for your service.
Oh, I would do it again. I would do it again if I could. Anyway, time marches on.
Time marches on, and we will.
Please
I will
look it
share.
up.
I will share
Look
your
it
story.
up. Do me a favor. Look it up on the internet, and you'll get the full story. We have a website. We have our association. Our survivors get together. Survivors and everybody that served on the ship get together once a year throughout the United States. We pick a city and we'll show up and have a reunion. So anytime that if you're in the area where we're at, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Bless your heart.
Thank you so much.
Ah.
Guys, on that note, we're going to leave this one. We will put the information in our post so you can also look it up. And again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time today. I'm beyond honored to sit here with you.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.